Hi, so
Oh,
this is Steve for Planet Mush, speaking with Joe Stamps of Baal and Hecate Enthroned. Afternoon, Joe.
hi. No, it's nice to be here.
Good, good. Makes a change. Makes a change. No, I'm only joking. So, first things first, is it Baal, Baal, or Baal?
Right. This is kind of like a point of contention for a lot of people. Um, we've always said Baal,
Yeah,
but I have to say the band was named by the previous vocalist. So we're gonna leave it at his door. So if anyone disagrees with the pronunciation, you can go to him. But yeah, we've heard that it's sometimes pronounced Bale. Well, I think with the accent that we've got in the logo, it's
yeah,
supposed to be pronounced Bale, but
right.
we've always said Baal.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I think again, it's one of the. I know that the name dates back to like ancient Sumerian, who's one of the
yeah,
Sumerian gods. I do know that Morbid Angel on the particularly, let's not talk too much about it, Illa Divinum Insanus, actually had a song of that, which was Blades for Baal, as they pronounced it.
right,
So,
okay. Um, Hopefully, not many people have heard that album.
unfortunately, I'm one of them, but nevertheless. Anyhow, forget Morbid Angel. Let's talk Baal. So, um, the last album was an absolute tour de force. Really,
Thank you.
really good piece of music. Um, for me, I would class it as a blackened doom. Would that be would you consider that to be a fair? That's my interpretation. Anyhow.
I think that's very fair. I think that we cross into a lot of different genres.
Mm-hmm.
So we've never been too precious about what we get
Yeah,
described as. I think there's a lot of sludge, there's a lot of post metal in there.
yeah,
Bands we most frequently get compared to are Wolves in the Throne Room
right.
and Death Heaven, which Death Heaven can sometimes, depending on people's opinions of Death Heaven, can sometimes be a bit of a double-edged sword. I think everyone in our band we're all big Death Heaven fans, so we
Right.
take it as a compliment. But
Fair enough.
yeah,
I must admit, Death Heaven. I know they're a band I know by name, but I haven't really listened to very much, if any of them have been dead straight. But then again, I can be very linear, but then I can just really branch out. So I'll probably check them out a bit. But in terms of Baal, now you're the main lyricist, so most of the I know that you're most of the you write most of the lyrics. You tend to write is would this be all of your songs or just some or most of the songs you're dealing with from a sort of personal perspective?
I think yes, it's personal perspective, um, different things that I've experienced in life, but I like to stress that it's not about me so
Right.
much. I like to write lyrics in a way in which anyone can interpret them so that they can put themselves into the song.
Yeah.
I think that is so much more powerful that way, and
Mm-hmm.
I think that sometimes um, you can get you can get lyricists who can sometimes I think it works if you're very famous, then if you can write very specifically about your own experiences, it humanizes you to
Yeah.
people when they might put you on a pedestal and think of you as like a big rock star, and you're a little bit um, untouchable in a sense. Whereas if you're kind of at our level, I think sometimes if you do that, it can be a little bit self-indulgent.
Right. Yeah.
uh, and also, I want to retain a sense of privacy, so I'd rather not be too on the nose about things because I don't want everyone knowing everything that I've ever been through.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of the topics, such as grief, loss, depression, substance abuse issues, suicidal ideation, these are things that affect everyone.
Yeah.
Um, no matter what walk of life you're from. So I think that it's important for us to kind of present them in a way in which anyone can kind of connect to them.
Yeah.
And for the most part, we found that people have.
Yeah.
So which is really nice.
Yeah, I do too. Quite a bit. I mean, a few of those things that I've been through, recently, and some that still have a sort of a long tail. Certainly, the grief side of things. I lost my dad 9 years ago now, and that was quite something. Because my mum and dad lived in Mallorca, I had to end up flying out to Mallorca and saw my dad literally the day before he passed, and then I had to deal with all the whole Spanish system of dealing with things, and it's like I feel like I never really got to grieve him properly. So when you sort of put songs like that across the people, it resonates. So
Absolutely, and that's kind of what I want Bal to do. It's sometimes difficult to fully kind of get across exactly how you want to do this and the reasons why, because I think sometimes people can think that you might be wallowing in grief somewhat.
Yeah.
You can be wallowing in sort of a negativity, and I think that there is kind of like there's a few bands out there and certain scenes that kind of almost fetishize sort of depression and grief and things like that. Whereas I've always wanted Bal to be a very positive force.
Yeah.
So it's kind of giving people a cathartic, safe, constructive way to kind of process things. So it's a very positive thing in a way,
Yeah.
dealing with very negative emotions.
You've literally just pretty much answered the next question I was going to ask, which for you, is it like writing the lyrics and performing the songs? Is that more like a personal catharsis? And I think you've just sort of
It's been a massive catharsis for me, yeah, definitely. And it's a catharsis, as I touched on earlier. It's a catharsis in which I can do this in a way where I can kind of have my cake and eat it, where I can kind of share a lot of things that I've been through personally, but not so clearly that I'm kind of sort of violating my own sense of privacy, so to speak. So it's always sort of vague enough. So it works in all capacities.
Right. One thing on the similar sort of lines I've noticed with listening to the Bal songs is you manage to put a lot of emotion in your performance. It comes across, if you listen to it properly. And I think I've mentioned to you that I've seen you with Hecate. I think in fact, it was the first time I actually saw you with Hecate, but Starling Garter in Manchester. And I was complimented on the fact that, even with Hecate, you managed to get a lot more emotion out and over, even, I mean, not that Hecate songs are specifically emotion, but you know what I mean? You get the feel and everything for it.
I think that gig in particular was a very emotional gig, that Hecate gig with the Star and Garter. So yeah, I can definitely feel that.
It's a bloody good gig.
Yeah, we enjoyed that one.
That's good. So anyhow, on the front of Bal, so obviously it's been a little while now before, since releases. So you're working on new material at the moment, aren't you?
We've just recorded some new material. So we've recorded quite a bit. We're figuring out at the moment exactly what we're going to do with everything. At the moment, because we recorded in July at No Studios in Manchester with Joe Clayton, who is the same guy that we did Ellipsism with.
Right.
But we've got a fair amount of material, and we're kind of in the mixing, mastering kind of process at the moment. Right. We've got a few little bits and pieces that we're going to need to add in. But yeah, there's going to be something coming soon, but there's not an awful lot that I can say about it yet, because it's kind of like there's stuff that's unconfirmed and whatnot. But
well, it builds the anticipation.
Yes, absolutely. you will be hearing new Bal this year at some point. I'm confident of that.
Yeah.
In what form and exactly what songs, I'm not entirely sure, but
brilliant. Don't do the release half an album as singles and then drop the album.
No, no, we're not into doing that.
I must admit, I'm so glad. Because I mean, obviously, you tend to find you write longer songs. There's not as many songs make up an album, compared to, say thrash bands, 12 3-minute tracks, and yours like
Yeah.
7 or 8-minute songs. Yeah, I seem to find that, I don't know if you're the same, that bands that release X amount of singles off an album before it comes, you're only finding like half the album. You're like, oh, that's great. I know that skip.
Yeah, I think we've kind of got a plan to maybe release a lyric video or something, and then we do have plans to do a music video, because that's kind of a bit of a bucket list thing for me, because I've never done like a proper acted out music video.
That'd be interesting.
So, but I don't really have like a time scale on that at the moment.
It will be when it will be.
Yes, we do know what song it is that we're going to be doing it for, but we can't say anything about it yet, because I mean I can give a song title, but like until we actually start playing it live, it's
no. let's keep the mystery. Let's just keep that again. It just have more impact when it finally comes to us.
That's the plan.
Marvelous. So on that's with Baal now. Hecate Enthroned. Obviously, like I say, I mean, I've known the lads for a long time, and Nige, Andy, Dylan, Delan. So we should Delan. Anything new on the Hecate front?
We are writing at the moment,
right.
So we're kind of we announced that we were starting to write an album some time ago.
Yeah.
Sometimes life kind of gets in the way a bit, and we've just recently had the show in which we played The Slaughter of Innocents in full.
Yes.
So we
Woods or something.
It was at Felfoot Wood,
right,
as part of Darkness Over Cumbria.
Yes.
So that was a lot of fun. But we've spent a lot of time kind of preparing for that, and so the writing has kind of been a little bit of a wayside for a little bit.
Yeah.
But in fact, even this morning, I've been on the band chat and we've been talking about it, and we've been talking about getting some time together to get into the room together and write. We had quite a difficult time over the pandemic because those guys are old school, and I get it, because you can't really expect guys like the Baal guys. We had like a shared drive, and we were kind of throwing riffs around even when we were in lockdown. The Hecate guys have always got together in a room and written together, and that's when like the best stuff kind of comes out. So the pandemic just kind of screwed us quite a bit, because we couldn't do that. And then it has taken a little bit of time to just kind of like ease back into things again. But as I sit here now, we've got like the skeleton structures of a couple of things going down, and we're sharing bits and pieces of guitars with one another. So as soon as we get back into the practice room again, the good thing with the Hecate is that as soon as we kind of get going, you kind of just sort of pull that thread, and just everything starts to go quite quickly.
So grenade.
Yeah, it's rather than a thread, it's like a pin on a grenade. That's a much better analogy. So yeah, it is. There's some good stuff coming, and we've had a lot of conversations about themes and things. So I think with Embrace the Godless Aeon, I came in and all the music was already written. So I just kind of wrote lyrics to what was already there. And it meant that the themes were kind of like a little bit all over the place, because I was kind of like, I hadn't been there at the start. So I was coming in and just sort of going, well, this song kind of says this to me. Whereas now I've said straight up, I'm reading all this stuff about Welsh and English folklore and mythology and stuff. That's going to be the theme of the next album. So I've been posting them like stories and things that I've read to kind of inspire them to, write. And they've been coming up with stuff that's kind of like connected to that. So it kind of it is going to have a much more streamlined identity, this album, and I think it's going to be so much stronger for it.
Not that Embrace was a bad album by any stretch. It's
no, we were incredibly proud of that album. It was brilliant.
I mean, I've got to say, I personally don't think Hecate have actually done a bad album. Every album has its merits, but I think Embrace I know there was something about it. I think overall package, the production was really good. The lyrical form was good. The music was great, and it's definitely up there for me with their releases.
I think there was a lot of enthusiasm and drive at that time. And like I said, I think the only thing that really kind of derailed us recently was the pandemic. And that's the same for so many people.
Definitely.
But I think that the band went through a real lull at one point. And after Redeemus came out, it was 9 years between Redeemus and Virulent Rapture.
Yeah.
And I think Virulent Rapture kind of re-announced them to say, like, we're back and we're doing some things. And then Embrace just kind of built on that momentum.
Yeah. With say Kings of Chaos and Redeemers, with Dean on vocals, there was more of a death metal sort of theme built into it, a blackened death. And then Virulent Rapture was a return to what I would call old school black metal Hecate.
Yeah, definitely. I think that with Pete coming in on keyboards as well, and Pete being an instrumental part for writing, the keyboards kind of came to the front a lot more, which they had the same as they had been on Slaughter of Innocence and Dark Requiems.
Yes, yeah.
And I think that on Kings of Chaos is a really good album. I think I've always really enjoyed Kings of Chaos. But I think that sometimes it's not as well received just because it's different.
Yeah.
And it's so different. And I have to say, I really like Dean's vocals as well. Always like Dean's vocals.
Definitely.
There's just there's such a snarl to them. It's like, I really want to start doing like a couple more like Kings of Chaos tracks live.
Yeah. That would be interesting.
Yeah, just I think that they work well in the set. Like, and I've had a couple of people ask me, when are you bringing a couple of those tracks into the set list? And I think the problem is with a band that's got such a large back catalogue, you've got so much to choose from. There's always got to be some stuff that gets left out. But I would love to bring in like a track like Perjurer or Blessing in Disguise or Conquest Complete, and
you couldn't go wrong with
not tell anyone we're doing it either. Just suddenly start playing it and see how people react.
Can you imagine the Pit to Perjurer?
Oh God, yeah. I mean, the Pit to Slaughter of Innocence, like the title track, is always dead good. But Perjurer would be good as well.
Yeah, good fun. So again, it's a case of let's wait and see and see what becomes. And
it's. I'm hoping that by the end of the year we'll have a bit more to kind of reveal. But it does just kind of depend on sort of how the next couple of months goes. It's with much of us in the band, we're all kind of here, there, and everywhere around the UK, because of course we're predominantly, even though the band's sort of originated in Wrexham, like we're predominantly practiced near Chester. And I'm based in Sheffield. Dill's in Stafford now.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he moved down there. Got a pub, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's got a pub. I'm hoping to visit there at some point.
Snap.
And even though I don't drink, like I
have to have an alcoholic drink to go to a pub.
Yeah. He said he's got a few alky-free beers in, so I'll definitely have to make the trip down.
Snap.
And
I'll join you.
But Matt, of course, is in York, and then several of us have got two bands because, of course, I've got Baal.
Yeah.
Matt's also in Insidious and in every black metal band that's ever existed in the UK. And Nige is playing in Dayfod now as well. So,
Yes. Yeah.
so but there's an awful lot going on at any one time. So sometimes getting us all together can be a little bit difficult. But when we do, we really the passion's there.
Out comes the pin and boom.
Yeah, out comes the pin in the grenade, and it's just all go. Like I think they've probably detected by the messages on the band chat. Like I can't wait to get back in there. Like coming up because I think I had a little bit of a lull because we were just getting ready for all the Baal recording, so my head was absolutely battered with that.
Yeah,
and I think one of the things with the Baal recordings as well is that it's not just that there was a lot of material, but sort of mentally absolutely kicks the shit out of me because of the kind of stuff that we're writing about and everything. So after we'd finished that recording, I kind of just hibernated for a couple of weeks and didn't want to do anything. But I'm now sort of the other side of that, and like I just want to do some Hecate stuff.
Brilliant. Well, we shall look forward to it. Very much so. So, any other projects that you did sort of mention? There might be some other projects. Is that away from Baal and Hecate, or?
Yes, slightly. So, a couple of years ago, I did a project with Chris Mole, who is also in Baal now. But at the time when I first started this, he used to be in a band called Northern Oak. Who might ring a bell.
Name does ring a bell, yeah.
They were a sort of folky black metal band. They played Bloodstock a while back, but they were like stalwarts of, things like Warhorns Festival and things like that. Me and him got together and we did a project called Child of Ash, which was almost kind of like a precursor to what I was going to do with Baal, because the first Child of Ash demo, a lot of it was kind of like more sort of emotional kind of like stuff. It was almost like depressive black metal.
Right.
We've got probably about 4 tracks worth of music written for another EP. So we're going to start working on that at some point.
Brilliant.
I've got an idea for a theme in which it's going to be a bit different in that it's going to be like an audio novella. So it's going to be one story. It's going to be like a concept EP. So it's one story of 4 tracks all the way through.
I like it.
And it's going to be quite ambitious, quite experimental. But you've got to give these things a go. And definitely, because it's not a band that we did play live with it twice, but because it's not a band that we're really thinking about playing live with too much, we're thinking about guest musicians, people who play sort of more unusual instruments and stuff like that. So it's more of a strictly recording thing. But yeah, we've kind of got that in the pipeline as well. So I certainly keep myself busy.
I was going to say, you're a damn busy chap.
To my fault sometimes, I have to say.
I get that. Just knowing you saying it's going to be a novella, you have a plethora of books behind you.
Yes.
I take it you are an avid reader.
Yes, fairly. I'm quite an avid writer as well. So I don't normally mention my stuff like this, like my education, but it actually ties into how I met Hecate. So I went to university. I did a creative writing degree, which is one of those degrees that a lot of people tend to laugh at, but because it's one of those sort of artsy degrees, which I have to say that a lot of time at university was spent getting drunk and meeting girls, and so there was that kind of cool sort of bohemian side to it. But I went to university in Liverpool, brilliant city. I absolutely love Liverpool. So I'm really glad that actually we're booked to play there in October, which is it's always nice going back.
Yes.
But yeah, so I always read a lot as a kid, always read a lot of fantasy, a lot of science fiction, and then sort of went to university to kind of try and sort of perfect that. Because I used to write short stories a lot and stuff like that, just kind of fun. And then now, I have to say, after university, I kind of put more of my writing into just lyrics for bands and stuff.
Yeah.
And I think having done it at an academic level, it kind of took some of the fun out of it for a while. So I had to give it a few years to kind of settle down. But I graduated in 2008, so like it was around about 2020 that I kind of got back into just sort of writing again. So
Right.
I kind of got two novels on the go at the moment, but I'm writing. So yeah, I read quite a lot, but
Me as well.
but
I'm much the same. Fantasy,
I
sci-fi, love it.
oh yeah, I've always loved science fiction, and always loved a lot of science fiction TV shows, and like and as well as fantasy is, like I was a huge fan of Discworld novels
Yeah.
growing up. So um, but yeah, a lot of the books behind me actually are more sort of academic books. They're my like science and history books and
Right.
stuff. Most of my fiction's upstairs.
Well, at least like I say, it all sort of comes together with the lyrical side. So
Well, it comes together like lyrically, because of course I've bought quite a few books recently about Welsh and English folklore and mythology,
yeah.
of course for Hecate,
Mhm.
including the Mabinogion, which is like was the first one that I bought because it's the main sort of Welsh sort of tome of like
Yeah.
folklore. Although you kind of have to know what you're looking for a lot of the time with a lot of the folklore, because you'll read certain things, especially like from the like Arthurian kind of ages, and it's like a man falls in love with like a wood elf and then gets turned into a log for eternity, and it's kind of like it's
Kinky.
not really stuff that really lends itself well to black metal, but
No.
you can find certain things in there that work. So.
There's certainly plenty of legends surrounding Wales, and I used to go a lot to over to Anglesey a lot, and there's quite a
Oh
lot of
yeah.
interesting stuff just connected to Anglesey alone as an island. Some very interesting stories and such. So yeah, that's going to be interesting. I'm going to be looking forward to that.
Well, there's a lot of history as well that
Mhm.
that is good. I always like to kind of like put a little bit of history in there. Like, and on the last album we had Erebus and Terror, which was about the Franklin expedition,
Yeah.
which I thought talk about like events that kind of lend themselves well to black metal. I
Mm.
think that getting stranded in the ice and then cannibalizing one another is about as black metal as it gets. Um, but yeah, I've been doing a lot of research into like the mining community, because of course it's something that South Yorkshire and much of Wales has in common.
Yes. Yeah.
So there's a lot of the folklore about like sort of like little brownies and stuff like that that help miners
Yeah.
and stuff, and so you can all link it all in. But very close to me, because where I live and where I'm from is kind of more in between Sheffield and Barnsley.
Right.
And the Oaks Colliery in Barnsley is actually the site of the worst English mining disaster of all time,
Ah.
um, which is brutal history. It's like a lot of the people who died were like kids,
Yeah.
like 10 and 11 years old. So I've already sort of said to the guys I want to do like a track that is historical, but is about kind of like the mining community
You
that
could
it kind of
almost tie
crossed over to
like
Wales.
the Aberfan disaster into that as well, couldn't you? With it being
Yes,
kids, that were, that suffered there as well. So yeah, great. Make for some interesting lyrics, that one.
yeah, definitely, and also it sort of brings like more of a sort of a sad and a emotional side into things, which, to be honest, has always been a part of like Hecate's music.
Yeah.
Like there's always been like that emotional, like a sort of emotive undercurrent that you just kind of feel sort of swelling underneath. And I think especially like tracks on the last album, like Silent Conversations with Distant
Yeah.
Stars, like had that in spades, and it's certainly something that we want to keep. So I've literally like more so with Baal, I've seen people in the audience crying. But I've had one or two occasions with Hecate where there's been people in the audience who have been like weeping.
Yeah.
And initially I've sort of joked and sort of said, we're not that bad.
No, music can do that to you. If it just, it can hit that particular chord and resonate with you, and various different things. I mean, I'm quite unabashed that certain things will get me going at a gig. So
yeah, definitely. Same for me. Yeah.
But shall we just round out now? Then we've got the bonus stuff. Shall we round out with a little bit of trivia for you? So,
oh, go on then.
Your favorite heavy metal album?
Oh God, that's. I mean, how long have we got? Favorite is very difficult. I say because it changes all the time.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not one of those people where like I had. I mean, I know what my probably the most important albums are, but
okay. Go on, let's go with them then.
All right. It's a pretty standard one, but this is me showing. I mean, I'm 37, so like I'm kind of showing like my generation here. But Slipknot's Iowa album was huge for me because I was 15 and it introduced me to extreme metal. And at the time, I'd never heard anyone do like vocals like that, really. So that's definitely one. I would say Opeth's Still Life is certainly my favorite Opeth album, and it was certainly like a watershed moment. Well, what's naming another Opeth album?
Well done.
Yeah, that wasn't intentional at all. It was certainly kind of like a watershed moment in that, like, it let me know that kind of like extreme metal could sort of be like quite beautiful in a sense as well. Like it, yeah, and that kind of got me into sort of stuff like Swallow the Sun, My Dying Bride, and stuff like that, which has heavily informed my musical taste at the moment, which is largely atmospheric black metal. And
I'm always into. So about hobbies now, I know that you do mixed martial arts, is it, or just martial arts?
I train. I certainly would never actually compete. I'm past the age now anyway, but yeah, it is. I've always been a fan. Well, not always, but like for many years, I've been a fan. And I wish I'd found it when I was a kid because there was never really any sports that I was particularly into when I was a kid. But yeah, I was a huge fan. So I went and gave it a go because I was interested more than anything. And I think because I was interested and because I've never been one of those guys that's really kind of had like an attitude about me, or like a proper sort of tough guy kind of like attitude about me, I kind of got on with it quite well because people accepted me, and I had a good attitude when I was doing it. So it's been really good. It's massively improved my confidence with a lot of things.
Brilliant.
And like I've never been in a fight in my life. So
that's something to be proud of.
It is, and I don't plan on ever getting into one. But at the same time, it's kind of nice to know that I've kind of got a little bit of ability with me just in case something does kick off. So it's
sounds good. So we'll go with last couple. We've already discussed a couple of books, science fiction books, like you like the Discworld. Would you say that is your favourite, or is there one book or one series that stands head and shoulders above the rest?
Oh, I think Discworld's definitely my favorite. I think my favorite Discworld novel is probably Mort.
Brilliant.
I think that was one of the first ones that I read. I would say in terms of like just books in general, Watership Down always like I remember seeing the film when I was a kid, and like everyone, it traumatized me. So like I read the book as an adult, and I absolutely love the book. It's one of those classics, but I
Yeah,
really like it.
brilliant.
On the flip side, I've never managed to make it through Lord of the Rings.
I got,
So
I got bored of the rings when I read that. So there we go.
wow, get out of the Shire. God.
It's a bit like reading the well, what's the big Game of Thrones? Yeah, it takes the guy 4 chapters to describe somebody's fur that they're wearing, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
Oh, get on with it. But have you ever checked out any of Peter F. Hamilton's works?
I haven't, no.
The Night's Dawn trilogy. Thoroughly recommend that.
Oh, I'll give that a go.
Yeah, it's 3, so obviously trilogy, 3 books. Each of them's over 1,000 pages, but
Wow.
you'll go through them like that. I
Oh,
did.
that's what you want. That's what you want.
Definitely, definitely. So anyhow, Joe, thank you very much for taking the time to have a chat with us, and
Ah,
it's been lovely to speak to you. Say, hopefully we'll be able to see you live at some point fairly
you
soon,
will.
and meet you
In
face to
fact, I can give you some tour dates if you want. And
face. Let's make a note of these. He says, reaching for a pen.
so in the start of October, so I believe it's from the 5th to the 5th of October to the 7th,
Yeah.
we're down south with Baal on a co-headline tour with Offness, who have just released a brilliant album. But I think we start off in Brighton, then London, and then Cardiff.
Yeah.
And then the next weekend we do up north,
Yeah.
where I think it's the 13th, 14th, and 15th of October, where we are doing Liverpool, Edinburgh, and Sheffield.
Right. Cool. I think I'll have to make it across to Sheffield.
Ah, well, you'll see our hometown set then
Oh, that's
with
okay.
Baal.
That
So
would be good. So it's the nearest one to me. So I'm near Manchester Airport. So
right.
so yeah. Well, Joe, thank you very much once again, and thank you very much for the dates. So we'll put something together for them and get that as a little bit of news up on the site, and hopefully get the get this up as a video. So all the best to you, mate. Take care, and
Thank you.
wishes for everything in musical in the future.
Brilliant. Thanks ever so
Cheers,
much.
Joe. Thank you.
All right.
Bye bye. Bye bye.
Bye bye.